This is a bike that we're in the process of fixing up. It's going to be donated to one of our local donation recipients, but today I'm just going to show you how to recable the front brake. So this would go the same for the rear brake. This would go, the same if you're putting brakes on a bike frame, building it up for the first time, or if you just need to replace the cable and housing because it's gotten old and it needs a refresh. So I've gathered all of the parts that we'll need here. So the first thing I'm gonna do is grab my brake housing that I have here, and I'm going to estimate just how long of a piece of housing that we'll need. So that looks about good to me, but I'm gonna extend it just about an inch or so, so that if I need to trim it, I can, but I don't wanna cut it too short to begin with. And now that it's cut, the inside of the brake housing has a little plastic liner inside. So I'm gonna use my little pointy thing here, and I'm just going to make sure that that plastic liner and everything didn't get crimped in there. We use a lot of used or already cut cables here, which can make threading them into the housing a little more difficult. So I wanna make sure that I make it as easy as possible for myself. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take a little bit of Tri-Flow and drip it inside the housing. So that's gonna go inside the housing there, and that's gonna help repel any water and keep the rust down and reduce the friction when I put the cable in there, so that the cable runs smoothly through the housing when I pull the brake lever. So the next thing to do is to put the cable in. So up here on your lever, there is a barrel adjuster, and there's a slot on the barrel adjuster as well as the brake lever. So that'll allow me to put the cable in back here and then just run the cable along the front here through the slot, through both of the slots in the barrel adjuster. And then once that's in, I'm going to tighten this down so that those slots no longer line up, so the cable is not going to come out. But one of the things I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unscrew the barrel adjuster just a little bit. So that means I'm gonna start with it unscrewed so that if I need to make any adjustments, I have a little bit of wiggle room in both directions. I could bring the barrel adjuster further out, or I could push it back further in. All right, and the next thing I'm gonna do is put the ferrules, these little metal end caps, on my housing here. Sometimes when you stick these on, they don't really want to stay in place, but once you have the tension of the whole system set up, those ferrules aren't going to go anywhere, and that's just going to protect the cut end of the housing from water getting in there and creating rust. So now is the time I'm going to thread my brake cable into the housing, and like I said, this cable has already been cut. This is a used cable that we keep around the shop. If you were using a new cable, it would be like sealed on the end, and so you wouldn't really have to worry about it unraveling. But I want to be extra careful with this one to make sure it doesn't unravel. So I'm actually just going to put a little drop of Tri-Flow on the tip of this cable. And then when I put it in the housing, I'm actually gonna twist the housing in the direction that the cable is twisted in, and that's gonna help keep any of those ends of the cable from snagging inside the housing and like unfurling. And this is gonna go all the way inside the barrel adjuster there. And then before I put this end into the little cradle on the brake caliper, we've got a couple more parts that need to be put on. So this is the noodle, and the noodle, kind of like the housing, has a little plastic sleeve inside. And again, I'm gonna drop some Tri-Flow in there. Again, reduces friction and keeps the rust out, hopefully. And then thread my cable into the noodle. And the housing with the ferrule on there should rest snugly inside the top of the noodle. Now I can drop the noodle here into the cradle on the brake caliper, slide it forward as far as it'll go. Sorry, I'll get these shifters out of the way. And before I attach everything, I'm gonna put this last little piece on. So this rubber piece here is called the boot. Slide that on. And now I'm going to tighten up my brakes and secure the cable with this pinch bolt. All right, once this is back in the cradle, sometimes it can be hard to keep everything lined up when there's no tension on the whole system. So for the last step, I'm gonna squeeze these brake calipers close against the rim and tighten my pinch bolt here. And because those pads are all the way up against the rim, they're rubbing. I can't spin this wheel if I wanted to. So I'm going to tighten up that barrel adjuster. I had loosened it a little to begin with, but tightening up is going to bring those pads away from the rim. So that's gonna give me a little more movement. As you can see, just this one side of the brake caliper is moving and this one isn't. So we need to center these pads, and we need to try and get that other side to spring back just like this one is. So this is where we're going to adjust these little tiny screws that we have on either side of the brake caliper. There's another video that shows just this adjustment part, but show it here as well. I'm gonna tighten the screw on this side, and that's going to bring that pad closer to me, further away from the rim. And then I'm gonna do the opposite on the other side and try to bring this side just a little closer to the rim and see if I can get the brake to kind of center itself over the rim. So now you can see we're getting movement out of both sides. These brakes are gonna rub because this wheel that I have in here is not true, but like I said, this whole bike is in the process of being repaired, so it's not quite ready to go. But now you can see that both of the pads there are bouncing back from the rim at an equal distance, so that's what we're looking for. The next step is to true this wheel and make sure we can get rid of that little bit of a rub.